the disciple of good works. Identity and names. Tabitha, Aramaic, and Dorcas, Greek, are the two names for the same woman. Both names mean gazelle or antelope. Having two names indicates she lived in a culturally mixed community between Jews, who spoke Aramaic, and Greeks, and also suggests her grace or noble character. Location: Joppa. This is an important port city on the Mediterranean coast, now Jaffa, part of Tel Aviv. As a bustling port, Joppa had a large community of poor people and widows, making it the ideal location for Tabitha to carry out her charitable work. Status: disciple. This is the most important title. It confirms she was a follower and believer of Jesus, even as a woman, in the early church, establishing the foundation of faith for all her acts of charity. Charitable work: making clothes for the poor. Specific actions: she was particularly known for making tunics and garments. This was not just a one-time act of monetary charity, but involved using her own skills and time to create essential, practical items. She focused on the poor and the widows in the community. In ancient society, widows were the most vulnerable group, lacking protection and stable income. Tabitha's work was an essential form of social security for the early church. These garments were not only for warmth but also a symbol of the care, dignity, and practical love of the community for them. Impact and legacy. These acts of kindness made Tabitha deeply loved by all. Her work strengthened and connected the believers in Joppa, turning faith into concrete, useful action. This close relationship was the reason her death caused such great grief, and was the motivation for them to urgently summon the Apostle Peter, which led to the subsequent miracle of resurrection. Tabitha's life proves that a true disciple is not just someone who believes in God with words, but someone who expresses faith through acts of service, leaving behind a legacy of love and compassion, death and funeral preparation. The Bible simply records that Tabitha fell sick and died. The passing of someone with such an important role was a huge shock to the Joppa community. According to Jewish custom, her body was washed and laid in an upper room. Placing the body upstairs might have been a measure of respectful preservation, or it could have been a sign of delay, a reluctance to accept death and a hope for a miracle. The disciples in Joppa knew that the Apostle Peter was in Lydda, a city not far from Joppa, about 10 to 11 miles. This sparked a strong hope in them, based on the miracles Peter had previously performed, e.g., healing Aeneas. They immediately sent 2 men to Peter with the urgent request, "Please come over to us without delay." This phrase expressed the urgency, desperation, and fervent belief that only Peter's intervention, through the power of God, could change the situation. Peter responded immediately and went with the messengers. Upon arriving in Joppa, he was led straight to the upper room. The scene before him was a large group of people, especially all the widows, who were weeping mournfully beside the body. Their grief was not just losing a community member, but losing their provider and caretaker. To express this great loss, they showed Peter the tunics and garments that Tabitha had made while she was alive. These garments were tangible, living proof, a material testament of love, of her tireless kindness. This was a powerful form of testimony. Look, she was not just a good person. She was the one who used her own hands to bring life and dignity to the most vulnerable among us. This sorrow indicated that Tabitha was not just an individual believer but the spiritual and material pillar of the community. The weeping in the garments created a touching backdrop, suggesting her worthiness, from a human perspective, for a resurrection miracle. The miracle of Tabitha's resurrection. Preparation and prayer. Peter put them all outside of the upper room. This action replicated the pattern of Jesus when he performed the miracle of raising Jairus' daughter. This action aimed to create a private space, focusing on divine power without being distracted by crying, sorrow, or the crowd's lack of faith. He knelt down and prayed. This action demonstrates the source of the power. Peter did not perform the miracle on his own. He humbled himself before God, acknowledging that he was only an instrument and that the power of resurrection belongs to God alone. The authoritative command. After praying, Peter turned to face Tabitha's body. The Aramaic command. He spoke loudly, "Tabitha, get up." This command has a strong similarity to Jesus' words to Jairus' daughter, Talitha cum, which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Peter's use of a direct and decisive command, rather than a prayer to the dead, demonstrates the authority given to him, similar to the authority of Jesus himself. Return to life and restoration. She opened her eyes, and upon seeing Peter, she sat up. The miracle was immediate and complete. Life returned to the dead body, proving that death is not the final limit. Peter gave her his hand and helped her up. This human and gentle action shows Peter's sympathy and compassion. After the divine power completed the work, he intervened with a concrete action to help her return to normal life. Peter called the believers, saints, and the widows in, and presented her to them alive. Obvious evidence. This was undeniable proof. Tabitha was fully restored and able to interact normally, ending all doubt. The resurrection of Tabitha, who was famous for her good works, was not merely a personal miracle but a powerful sign that confirmed the gospel message and Peter's authority within the church. Extraordinary results following Tabitha's resurrection. This became known throughout Joppa. The miracle of resurrection was an event that could not be concealed or denied. Tabitha herself, a well-known and beloved figure, returning to life was the most powerful proof. And many believed in the Lord. This is the ultimate purpose of all miracles in the book of Acts. The miracle removed doubts and led many people, both Jews and possibly Gentiles, to convert their faith and accept Jesus as the Christ. This miracle is clear evidence that the power of the risen Christ continues to operate through his apostles. The miracle reinforced the church's preaching about the resurrection, helping to expand and strengthen the early church in an important port city. Peter stayed many days in Joppa after the miracle. Peter's continued presence was necessary for spiritual care of the new believers. This shows that he did not just perform the miracle and leave, but also carried out consolidating pastoral work. He stayed at the home of Simon, a tanner. This is a crucial detail. Tanning was considered an unclean profession under Jewish law because it involved handling dead animal carcasses. Peter's acceptance of lodging at this man's house shows that the apostle was gradually overcoming traditional Jewish barriers. Peter's stay in Joppa and at the house of an unclean person was a precursor and preparation for the next important event, his vision of clean and unclean animals and the preaching of the gospel to Cornelius. The story of Tabitha did not just end with her resurrection. It also opened the door for the gospel to be carried to the Gentiles, non-Jews, in line with the church's overall mission. The event of Tabitha being raised from the dead transformed a personal tragedy into a great missionary opportunity, demonstrating divine power and furthering the scope of Peter's ministry. Core meaning of the story. The story of Tabitha brings profound lessons. The power of good works. Tabitha was not raised because of her status or wealth, but because of her good works and acts of charity. The community's deep affection for her, expressed through their tears and the garments, created a prayer filled with faith and meaning. The power of resurrection. This miracle is clear evidence that the power of Jesus, the risen one, continues to operate through his disciples, including Peter. Faith brings forth miracles. It was the faith of the disciples in Joppa, who refused to accept death and urgently summoned Peter, that created the conditions for the miracle to occur. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss the newest content from my channel.